What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing well. Today I want to talk about a few tips to help improve your overall gameplay in Battlefield 6, including the settings you should or shouldn't be using, how spread and gunplay actually works, how to be as efficient as possible for a class of your choosing, and how to better position yourself to get as much value as possible out of each life. So let's get started with the settings. I'm not going to go over every setting since I do have a pretty in-depth guide that goes over everything from your HUD to your controller to your graphics. But I am going to go over a few important details to help improve your overall gameplay. So for your HUD settings, you can pretty much do whatever you want with all these, but if you're having trouble seeing enemies in pretty much any situation, what you're going to want to do is turn on the SOVIS filter, which is going to increase the brightness and contrast of enemy players. Afterwards, you're going to want to go down to your crosshair and hit indicator settings, and you're going to want to turn off infantry crosshair and hit indicator projection. I will have a little side-by-side to show you what these settings actually do, but with these settings turned on, your crosshair and your hit markers are going to shake all over the place while you're firing. And with these settings turned off, your crosshairs and your hit markers are going to stay tied to the center of your screen no matter what you're doing. Next, you're going to want to go down to your graphics settings, scroll to your camera settings, and set your field of view to 100 at minimum so you can see your surroundings a bit better. It's also important to note that the more you increase your FOV, the less intense your recoil is going to feel, but enemies are also going to appear smaller, so it's important to find an FOV that's right for you. I personally like to use 120 FOV so I can see my surroundings as best as possible and my recoil feels less intense, but usually anything between 100 and 120 is right for most people. Besides that, you'll want to set your weapon field of view to wide so your weapon appears smaller in ADS and you can see your surroundings a bit better. And to improve your visual quality, you'll want to turn weapon and world motion blur off, set your camera shake amount to 25, turn on reduce sprint camera bobbing so it's a bit easier to see while sprinting, and turn off chromatic aberration, vignette, and film grain. Next, we're going to talk about gunplay, specifically how spread works and how to properly position yourself and how to efficiently use movement in BF6. Now, if you're having trouble grasping the concept of how spread works or if you're just new to the game, essentially how it works is if I shoot 1 or 2 shots, my bullets are going to be pretty accurate, but the longer I hold down my trigger, the more inaccurate my bullets are going to become. Now, obviously, spread isn't too terrible in this game if you're standing still. You can get long-range shots pretty easily, but even while I'm standing still, you can see a lot of my bullets are straying off of where I'm aiming. And it's going to get even worse while I'm moving. As you can see, most of my bullets are straying off target. And what you're going to do to get past this is tap fire or burst fire. So all I'm really going to do is just tap my trigger, let 1 or 2 shots out, and my shots are going to become a lot more accurate, and I'm going to be able to get the kill really easily. Now, obviously, with the majority of guns in this game, you are going to have to tap fire past around 35 meters, but there are a few guns in this game that'll let you hold down the trigger without any penalties, like the AK-205 or the RPK-74M. And when it comes to your positioning, you're really going to want to prioritize head glitches and tight angles. With how fast the time to kill is and how sluggish and heavy the penalties are with movement, you're going to be able to get some pretty easy kills and catch enemies off guard if you're positioned right. So if you're crouched behind a position like this, enemies are only going to be able to see your whole head or the top of your head at most, which is going to make it easier for you to get kills on them, and it's going to make it harder for them to get kills on you. But you do have to be careful with the hide over bore mechanic, which essentially just ties your bullets to your barrel instead of your sight or your head. So I can shoot this target pretty easily, but if I wanted to shoot this target right here, it's going to be hitting the desk. So I have to pull back a little bit more so I can actually get those shots off on that target. As for holding tight angles, it's kind of hard to get a good example since I'm in the firing range, but essentially what you're going to want to do is peek as little as possible around corners so enemies have a harder time seeing you. And when it comes to movement, you don't really need to spam the mechanics like some people do, because with the way this game is built, there's a lot of sway and spread penalties that are hard to compensate for in some situations. You can get away with crouching in most gunfights up until about 30 meters, but it only really works if you're on even ground. If you're on any uneven terrain or stairs, it's going to make your sway penalties a lot worse while you're crouching. So as you can see, while I'm crouching and shooting at these targets, I'm not really missing my shots. And I can do this all the way up until about 35 meters without any issues. But I still have to compensate for the spread as I'm moving around. And when it comes to jumping and sliding, you're really not going to want to use these mechanics past 10 meters. As you can see when I jump, there's a lot of sway moving up as I'm going into the air and a lot of sway down as I land, which is going to make gunfights a lot harder past 10 meters. Obviously, you can get away with it pretty easily in shorter ranges, but the farther away your target is, the harder it's going to be to keep your reticle on that target. Even at 20 meters, you can still get away with it, but it can be pretty iffy at times. So it's better to just keep your feet planted past that distance. But let's say you're jumping around the corner, and a target is a lot farther away than you thought. What you can do to negate those sway penalties is double crouch as you land. So all you really need to do is jump, and double crouch as you land. It can be a little difficult to get the timing right, but as you saw when I tried that second time, there was little to no sway penalties as I landed. All you really need to do to get that timing right is listen to when your feet land. So right as you hear those 2 steps as you hit the ground, that's when you're going to want to double crouch. Even if you don't get the timing right, the penalties aren't nearly as bad since you're crouching with the sway as it goes down, but it's still going to be important to get the timing right for farther range engagements. The last thing we're going to talk about is how you should be moving around and positioning yourself in-game. And I'm going to use Iberian Offensive as an example since there's a lot of places you can position yourself and a lot of different routes you can take. And for the common positions around A, you'll see a lot of people around here behind this corner or behind this truck. A lot of people will use this building as a head glitch at the top of the stairs or the windows. A lot of people also like to hide around this courtyard or in this building right here. A lot of people also like to hide around here at the front of A in this building or in between these 2 trucks. In the back of A, behind these vehicles or ledges. Or they like to hide along the sidelines behind these blocks or this car. For B, everyone pretty much just hides anywhere in this building, in the rooms or the bathrooms or the stairs. And from time to time, you can catch a lot of people hiding around in this perch. For C, it's going to be pretty similar. You can hide anywhere in this building, in the bathrooms, in the rooms, or in the stairs. And a lot of people also like to hide in this building, behind the cars, or on the top of the ledge. For D, there are a lot of destroyed vehicles and a lot of craters in the ground to hide in. But there's also these back stairs right here, this building, these stairs, and then these crates right here. For E, you have this alleyway, this whole back area of E. Then you have these 2 buildings, and then you have these 2 buildings and this bush. And if, for example, you're capturing an objective and you're trying to keep enemies off of it, you can hide around here in this rocky area for E. You can hide on this perch around C, or you can position yourself near any of these destroyed buildings near C or D. And with the majority of these positions, you can get really good angles on different parts of the map. So for example, if you're inside any of these buildings, you can't really get good angles on E since you have a small window or a doorway to look through. But if you're on the top of these buildings, you can pretty much overlook the entirety of E. If you're on top of this building, you can get an angle on the spawn to catch any enemies that are trying to run out. And you can get a really good head glitch on any enemies that are running through this bottom lane. And it's going to be the same thing for these bottom buildings. You can get a good angle on the entirety of E, and you can catch any enemies off guard that are trying to capture it. And in my opinion, C is one of the most important power points on an Iberian Offensive, which is honestly really annoying because nobody rushes for C in the beginning of the match. Because if you have C captured, you can get an angle on this back alleyway, you can get an angle on the entirety of the back end of C, you can also get a really good angle on this destroyed building over here, and you can get really good angles on the whole street in front of C, as well as this alleyway to the side. For B, the angles are kind of restricted, but you can still get really good angles on anyone trying to capture B. So if you're in these 2 windows, you can get a really good angle on this alleyway. And if you're in any of the other windows, you can get good angles on either side of B to make sure nobody's running in to capture it. If you're on the back, you can get a decent angle on this little pocket right here to make sure people aren't hiding. But it can be a little difficult because there's a lot of cover for people to hide behind. And just like the E objective, you can get a pretty good angle on the entirety of the A and D objectives since they're pretty open areas. So if you're hiding behind the crates, you can get decent looks on these stairs and on these back stairs, and even people trying to flank on this back road. And if you have these barriers destroyed, you can get good angles on any of these destroyed buildings or the road. And if you're just trying to overlook objectives to put pressure on the enemy team so your team can capture it, or you're just trying to defend, you can get really good angles from any of these positions. So from the side windows on this destroyed building, you can get angles on this back building, on the playground, and pretty much anywhere on D. For this destroyed building, it's pretty similar. You can get a good angle on these back stairs, and you can get an angle on anyone hiding behind this little back area where all those cars are parked. And for this little perch right here, you can get really good angles on the second story of C or anywhere down this road or alleyway, as well as the whole area behind you for the most part. For high traffic routes, you have this route down the road to get to A, which is going to be your most efficient, but you could also break off to take these stairs, or you can take this alleyway. For B, you can obviously take this road and up the stairs, which is going to be one of the most efficient paths. You could break off to take these corner stairs, or you can run all the way around to take the back stairs. There's also this path, and you can also take this middle alleyway to get to B. You just keep running through instead of breaking off to A, and then taking these back stairs. And then going from A to B, your most efficient route is going to be taking this road and taking these back stairs, but you could also break off to take these stairs instead. Both of these paths are going to be pretty efficient no matter what. And going from B to C, your most efficient path is going to be through this alleyway and building to take those front stairs. And to go from A to C, your most efficient path is going to be through this alleyway and into the side of C. If you wanted to go from B to D, You can obviously keep taking this road down here. You can take this alleyway to use the destroyed building or this little broken path, or you can break off to take the middle alleyway. And for this right spawn, your most efficient paths are going to be pretty simple in comparison to the left spawn. So obviously you have the middle route right here to get to E, or you can take this road on the side to get to the back of E. And to get to D is pretty much going to be the same thing. You just run around down this road, or you can break off to take these stairs next to the playground. And the quickest route to get to C from this right spawn is cutting off down this road and through this back alleyway. And if you take this path, you're going to be able to get to C at least 15 to 30 seconds quicker than anyone from the left spawn, unless they're using vehicles. Mid-game traffic routes, on the other hand, are obviously going to be a bit different. You still do have your routes straight out of spawn on either side, and you do have some familiar routes from B to C, A to C, C to E, but unlike at the start of the game, this alleyway and this alleyway are almost completely empty 99% of the time. You will find a straggler here and there, but more often than not, you're free to do whatever you want in these areas. Now obviously any of these routes will get you across the map just fine, but when you have people hiding in this building or any of these buildings, it's going to be a bit harder from time to time. So to avoid taking enemies head on, it's going to be better to find flanks to catch the enemy off guard and take their objectives from them. So take Objective C to Objective B, for example. Most people are going to take this route to get to B or from B to C, and most of the time people are going to run straight down the road and take either of these openings right here to get to B. But the problem with that is that there's a lot of people watching these areas, and it's going to be a lot harder to actually take the objective from them. So what I usually like to do instead is break off to the side down here and take the back of the stairs so I can get a head glitch through the windows or the top of the stairs if the walls are broken down. And most of the time, I can put a pretty good dent on the enemy's defenses, since from this area, you have a good angle on all of the windows, and if the walls are broken down, you get a really good angle on the top of the stairs at the end of the building right here. And with this route through the back alleyway to get from E to C, you can catch a lot of enemies off guard as well. Besides being the fastest route to get to C, it's also the most unexpected in the middle of a game, since a lot of people are going to be keeping an eye out for enemies around this building or this ledge, as well as anywhere in the front of C. All of these alleyways are also going to be pretty empty in the middle of a match, unless a team has the majority of objectives. If that's the case, then you will find a lot of people hanging out around here or anywhere around here, but most of the time, there won't be a lot of people in these areas. But even if there are, you can often sneak around through the street and up these stairs right here, or you can take this alleyway to get to the stairs to catch enemies off guard. A lot of people also like to rush head on through these stairs to get to C, but if people are overlooking out the window, you're going to have a really hard time actually pushing the objective. What you should do instead is break off to the side and go through this destroyed building to get to the side stairs, since most people won't be focused on this area unless they know people are coming. And one of the best routes you can take from B to D is going to be this small alleyway right here. Since it's so low to the ground, you won't be seen by any enemies around here between these destroyed buildings or up on the ledge, and you're going to have a really good angle on all the hiding spots in the middle of D. And obviously this will be dependent on what kind of match you're playing, but the majority of the time, all of these low traffic lanes are going to put you in some really powerful positions to catch enemies off guard. So that's going to be about it for the video. If you found any of these tips helpful, drop a like and subscribe to the channel so you can keep up with the best tips, tricks, and breakdowns in Battlefield 6. If you're looking for a full in-depth guide to your settings, or you want to figure out how to build the best weapons possible, I'll have the links in the pinned comment below. And if there's anything I missed or anything that you want to add, then drop a comment down below as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.